It is 9 p.m. on the East Coast of the United States. You're watching our bumper as we record this for quality and training purposes, of course, and streaming to Facebook, Twitter, yes, and YouTube. Our chat room is waiting. Our first-time guest is waiting. I see no reason not to start a countdown to Studio 39 Alpha. And all systems are go. Good evening. Welcome to pjnet.tv. It's going to be quite a ride tonight. We have not one but two first-time guests joining us and awaiting in the green room of the PJNet Diner behind me. Is a first-time guest whose first name is Lori. The last name is not that hard to pronounce. It's pretty much the way it sounds. Vober. So, Lori, you look marvelous. How you doing, girl?
I'm doing wonderful, Mark. Thank you. How are you?
Oh, well, it's like an octopus on roller skates here on this end, but that's the way I like it. Folks, Lori looks, well, she looks amazing, but if you would have seen her a few years back, you would wonder how. Because at the age of 29, Lori, you suffered a stroke?
Yes, sir. I did.
How unusual is that exactly?
It is quite unusual. It was caused by an undetected malformation on the right side of my brain of blood vessels that were not formed correctly at birth, and they were undetected. And one day, out of the blue, I had a hemorrhagic stroke, which caused a massive bleed, and which caused a stroke. And at the time, when I was rushed to the hospital, I went through an emergency brain surgery, which then turned into a 17-day drug-induced coma. When I woke up from my coma, I had completely lost my left side. I was 29 at the time. I then went through a second brain surgery to remove the malformation so that we didn't have another bleed occur. And then the physical therapy started, and we went from there on learning how to cope and deal with everything being one-sided. And so my life started over from there at age 29. My husband and I had been married almost 5 years. At that point, when I was discharged from the hospital, we were just celebrating our 5th year wedding anniversary.
Any warning signs that this was coming?
No warning signs up till then. I had lots of migraines, but back then they didn't do the MRI, CT scans, or anything they would do today. So really no warning signs until it happened. But I very much believe God has a plan for each of us. And part of his plan was I actually had left a corporate career at the airlines and accepted a position at our church just 3 weeks prior to my stroke. And so rather than flying, which I typically probably would have done, I was actually in a position at our church the day of my stroke. So I believe that in itself saved my life. And then there was just many other God moments along the way that his hands of protection has been on me. So I have recovered quite a bit of my losses, and for that I'm very thankful. But I definitely beat the odds for the type of stroke that I had. Only 52% actually survived the type of stroke I had. So I'm very, very grateful to be living today.
I would say that you more than survived. I mean, just from what we could see on the screen, usually when you encounter someone who suffered a stroke, first of all, they're a lot older than 29. They're like old like me, and usually there's one side of their mouth does kind of like Sylvester Stallone. They kind of talk, but I cannot see any apparent symptoms that are easily detected on the screen. So, how long was it once you got through that? How much rehabilitation, how much therapy, how long did it go? How traumatic was it?
I started out with absolutely no movement whatsoever on the left side. When we were discharged from the hospital in March, soon after, as luck would have it, my husband was in the aviation industry, and September 11th hit our family, and he lost his job. And so we were quickly found a new position in Arizona, which again, God had his hand of protection on us because we moved to Arizona and I found a most phenomenal therapy program here, neurotherapy program here in Arizona. And I don't believe I would have recovered the way I had we not moved to Arizona away from the cold weather and been involved in that therapy. I worked literally 6 to 8 hours a day from the time we moved to Arizona in the fall of 2003 for years. It became my full time job, and day in and day out, all I did was therapy all day long. And so we basically dedicated the next 7 years up until we made a choice to start a family through adoption in 2010. Therapy was my full-time job, and that's all I did every day, all day long, was physical therapy.
Six to
Now,
eight hours a day.
6 to 8 hours a day.
Now, you said that you had just taken a job at a church, so I presume that you were already a Christian.
I was.
But how does this impact your walk with Christ? I mean, anger, depression. I mean, there must be a range of emotions that just churn up and down.
I am so very, very thankful that I was a Christian prior to this happening because I think that I wouldn't have handled it the way I have and handled all my challenges the way I have had I not been a Christian. However, I think that uh, my walk with God has grown even stronger through the years because of my challenges. And it just, God has a plan for each of us. And I strongly believe in Jeremiah 29:11 through 13, that He does have a plan for each of us. And we don't know the side of heaven what His plan is. And we have a choice of whether we follow His plan or not. And that's His way of giving us free will. But I'm so thankful for my faith and that He's helped me use the perseverance and the faith that He gave me to get through my challenges. And if I had not had that, I would not have been able to make the journey I have with the attitude I've had. So I'm so thankful for that.
29 years old, married 5 years. You don't have a choice. You have to go through the therapy, the 6 to 8 hours. This could put a strain on any marriage, even a good one. Your husband, there are many husbands who would bail out.
There are. But I tell you what, Mark, this is the amazing part of God's plan. My husband grew up with a mom who battled cancer during his childhood. So he watched a dad take care of a mom through his childhood and his teenage years. So when I moved to Minnesota for my career, I thought I was moving to Minnesota for my career. I then found out later I moved to Minnesota to meet my godly husband. And I truly believe God's plan was for me to move to Minnesota to meet my godly husband, who I met at church for this very time as being able to understand and have someone by my side and to take his wedding vows for better, for worse, for goodness and health seriously. And many, many guys would not. But because he grew up in an environment with a dad who also took his vows seriously, he understood what it was like to take care of a wife who had a disability and had needs. And he has stood by me and loved me through all this. And our marriage is stronger today because of it. And we are so excited about what our future will hold.
I'm glad to hear you say it, Lori, because we know at some academic level, even at some theological level, But walking that walk, folks, the world's agenda, marriage is a transactional, contractual contract. It's not seen as a covenant. And Tony Evans said it best: the measure of love is the measure of sacrifice. You don't know how much you love until that sacrifice is required of you. Then you find out. So I commend your husband for being the man that he chose to be. And we need to hear more about that, because it seems, well, it is the truth. That's why. Okay, it's the truth. Your story, though, is actually not one of suffering a stroke at 29. That's certainly a major ingredient in the recipe, but it takes a twist and turn, because it changes the way most families do things. Kinda. Am I teeing that up well enough?
Yes, yes. So we 7 years post-stroke, we decided we had a big decision to make. We could either continue with the route we were going and pick up where we left off, which was travel and enjoying our life, or we could go pick up where we left off and consider a family. And we decided that we were called to provide a forever family to children that may not otherwise ever have that opportunity. And both my husband and I were only children, so we felt not only were we called to adopt, but we were called to adopt a sibling group. And so we never knew what it was like to grow up with siblings. And so we felt that that was important to us. So we adopted in April 2011 a 6, 8, and 10-year-old sibling group from Colombia, South America.
Now, why Colombia, South America? I mean, did you throw a dart at a map and that's where it hit, or they're surely, I mean, and it's unusual. Usually, by the time they reach that age, the prospects for adoption have diminished. You know, everybody wants a newborn, healthy, not biracial. The ideal package. These three had suffered a lot, but why Colombia?
We really liked the idea of the Latino culture, and because of where we live in Arizona, that is very prevalent in this area. And we were already exposed based on some of our friendships to that culture. And so we just felt drawn to that culture, number one. And number two, our focus at this point wasn't for a newborn. We knew that with my disability, that wasn't something that I can necessarily handle easily.
Right.
And our draw was to help give a forever family to children that wouldn't otherwise have one, not necessarily a newborn. And that's why we were okay taking on and loving older children. And so with all that combined, we looked at Latino countries, and Colombia was a good match for us.
So you just go on the internet, you Google Colombia adopted children, and you got a hit. How'd that work?
Well, there was a website called Rainbow Kids, and we started out that it's a agency website. It's an adoption agency website. So we started out that route and found an agency that way, and picked our agency, and then went through a home study program, and then they matched us with our kids through that.
The process of adoption I am somewhat familiar with, and I was not prepared for the gauntlet, and I mean gauntlet. And this was not for a child, outside of this country. So add to that gauntlet, and I want you to share about some of that. But add to the international complications. You've got passports, you've got visas, you've got dossiers. Tell us about it.
It was a lot, and we When we first researched Colombia, we were supposed to be in Colombia for 4 to 6 weeks or 6 to 8 weeks, depending on which judge signs off on your adoption paperwork. And unfortunately, once we were over there and we received our kids, and we were in an adoption hotel, and the judge got our paperwork, we got a judge that was not pro adoption. And in the end, we were stuck in Colombia for 16 weeks. So we sat in an adoption hotel with 3 children that spoke no English for 16 weeks, waiting for a judge to sign our paperwork and let us to come home. So it was beyond challenging, but uh, you do what you have to do, and you put one step in front of the other, and you just keep going. And I think over and over and over again, our whole life has been in the past 20 years, challenge after challenge after challenge, and God has had our back every step of the way. And so this past spring, I was called to write my story, and I wrote my first book, and it's coming out this next spring in February or March. And it's all about my challenges, but the faith and perseverance God has given me to withstand those challenges. And I hope that my book and any opportunities I have in the future to speak will just be encouragement to others that with God and His plan, you too can get through anything that you may face.
You've got an interesting story, and I wonder when you have the opportunity to speak, what type of groups have you spoken to? What type of groups do you kind of anticipate? How does the future unfold as a public speaker? I mean, what are you going to do? Google, support groups for Latino adopted trips, huh?
Well, my passion actually is stroke. My passion is definitely the stroke community. So
Uh-huh.
I'm really open to church groups. I'm open to stroke support groups. I'm open to adoption support groups. So I feel like every every group has of individuals has their own challenges. So it doesn't matter what your challenges are. Everybody needs hope and encouragement. And my goal is to use my book and my story to give hope and encouragement where I can.
Well, I would like to hear your husband's story. What's his name?
Danis.
Okay, so he's probably just off the screen over there muzzling the dog. How about just have him lean over and wave hello?
I wish he could. I am so sorry, but actually, he was tasked with going to pick up my son from school right now, who is at a technical school. So
Okay.
actually isn't. But I will definitely the next time I'm on, I'll have him
Well,
join me. That would be
yeah,
wonderful.
the dog hasn't made any noise. I figured he had the dog muzzled, or suffocated under the pillow or something. I don't know,
I
but
think he actually took him probably for a drive to get my son.
well, wonderful. Well, Lori, it's we appreciate you sharing your story. There's so many challenges, and they don't have to, folks. Whether you're facing a stroke or you're facing other crises, the verse that Lori referred to, Jeremiah 29:11, goes like this: "For I, the Lord, know the plan I have for you, a plan to prosper you, not to harm you, a plan to give you hope and a future." And Lori has claimed that verse. I have claimed that verse. I hold on to it with white knuckles and bloody fingers. The fact of the matter is that verse is either true or it's not. If it's not true, then devise whatever solution you want to. But if it is true, then we can rely on God to love us and trust Him, whether it's a stroke, whether it's adopting 3 Latinos, whether it's holding a marriage together through all of that, whatever the challenge may be. God is up to every challenge, and He loves us very much indeed. Lori, thanks for sharing your story. We'll have to, when that book comes out, we'll have to have you back and get an update when we can put the book cover on and all that kind of good stuff.
Thank you, Mark. It's my pleasure. I greatly appreciate this opportunity. Thank you so very much.
Loved having you, Lori. Thanks for sharing. Well,
Great.
folks, there, up there is one of many cameras that surround the PJNet broadcast facilities from which this program originates. Now, look, two first-time guests, don't touch that dial, whatever you do, because you are about to be blown away with a story that if you cannot make this stuff up. And you have already been given a story of enormous strength, enormous faith, enormous perseverance and courage, and just this is the stuff of which the human experience is made. And I'm so glad to be able to bring these stories from everyday people just like you or me. You don't know what tomorrow holds. Cam Tribolette. I want to say Triboulet because it's like Chevrolet. But anyway, he will be joining us at the bottom of the hour. You don't want to miss his story. But I've got to do some things between now and then. And while I'm doing those, I would like you to consider two questions and do so honestly and candidly. The first question is, what is the boldest thing you've ever done for Jesus Christ? And the second question is, whatever the answer to that first question was, is how long ago was it? Folks, you've heard a story of incredible perseverance and courage. You're going to hear another one. But whatever your answers are to either of those two questions, I hope that we'll never be satisfied with either answer.